The Angbagang Lipunan currencies back up by 7,000 metric tons of gold of President Ferdinand Marcos, and his other certificates of trust funds are all real. This is his letter of instruction in 1983. Instructing the Central Bank of the Philippines to print these gold-backed currencies in order to alleviate Philippine economy. This angered the globalists or elites who controls the Federal Reserve System and banking system around the world, because if Marcos succeeded in this, that will be the beginning of the fall of the petrodollar empire of United States government. This is why they immediately imposed sanctions to the Philippines, and that is the cause of sudden decline of our economy during the time of Marcos' last term. Remember, it was also in 1983 where Ninoy Aquino was killed. The businessman who betrayed Marcos, and boycotted the businesses of his cronies, or friends, all helped together to bring Marcos' downfall. In 1985, the U.S. government, also known as U.S. Corporation of Washington, D.C., and some elites that are in IMF and WB tried to persuade Marcos to change or abandon his plan and make considerable reforms in Philippine economy, yet Marcos remained straight to his vision and grand plan. Because they cannot convince Marcos, all their tentacles conspired together in order to remove the strong man from his office. They have succeeded in doing so in 1986, but Marcos' ultra-advanced intelligence has superseded them. Marcos has already put all these in his last will and testament through disposal of Marcos Foundation, and all his wealth were insured in the Lloyds of London. All these events that led to Marcos' removal from the palace were all master-planned by the elites, so people will hate Marcos and his plan will not succeed. They brainwashed, deceived, and fooled our fellow Filipino countrymen so they can advance their hidden agenda. The uncut dollars, or Asian dollars, are paper bills worth trillions of money backed by gold that were not distributed because the Federal Reserve Empire hindered it. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, or simply known as World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, are actually backing up Marcos' plan because they knew the truth about Marcos' wealth enclosed in trust account and cloaked in secrecy for the benefit of the Filipino people, because that's their original purpose. World Bank and IMF were institutions created during Bretton Woods Conference in 1944 to help the nations from the damages brought by World War II. World Bank and IMF were operating under the Bretton Woods system, which is to provide collateral loans based on pooled assets, or the wealth of nations, including Marcos' wealth, based on gold standard. However, the World Bank and IMF's original purpose were put into dormancy in the international market after President Nixon declared the non-convertibility of gold into dollars, probably because of the pressures from the elites. From 1971, when this Nixon shock was declared, the gold standard of Bretton Woods system became non-operable, because the economy was hijacked by federal system monopoly-based U.S.-Saudi oil deal of 1974. From that time onwards, the Bretton Woods system was set aside and the Federal Reserve System became the ruling empire, and their instrument is the fiat currency, or paper bills without gold backup, and the whole world plunged into debt and corruption because the wealth of the nations cannot be used because they were laid dormant. Marcos' wealth and his grand plan to elevate the Philippines into a superpower nation called Maharlika is absolutely real. Marcos is not our enemy. He was slandered by God's enemies so they can hinder his plan, in order for the Filipino people to remain as their slaves forever. All the mainstream media, publications, oligarch-controlled businesses and institutions, Vatican, communists, and the Liberal Democratic Party politicians all conspired together to destroy Marcos' reputation so they can hinder his humanitarian program and grand plans. Nation. Marcos' vision of Philippines 2000 did not materialize in the year 2000 because of the failure of the Filipino people to comprehend these things and for believing the propaganda lies of the Yellow Movement. Let's us pray for our countrymen and let us help the Marcos family fulfill their dream for the nation. Arise Philippines, arise. Bring Marcos back to Malacanang.